All right, we've got some big breaking news. Pam Bondi has been fired by Donald Trump. I want to walk through this story because there's a couple things that I think really highlight what's going on politically with Donald Trump and a couple of things that you may not know. Now, here's the thing. There are kind of two separate emerging reports on why this happened. First, from the Daily Mail. According to the Daily Mail, Bondi had begged the former reality star not to fire her from the position, but he went through with the decision and informed her shortly before he addressed the nation regarding the current conflict in Iran. Quote, she was unhappy and tried to change his mind, a source told the publication at the time. And Trump's decision to abruptly remove her was partly driven, at least, by his belief that Pam Bondi had alerted Eric Swalwell to the FBI's plans to release documents tied to his alleged connection with a Chinese spy. Quote, she's intervening in those matters, the source continued to the Daily Mail. The White House wasn't pleased she was intervening due to her personal friendship with Swalwell. So here's the thing, Donald Trump obviously has spent an enormous amount of time directing people, these loyal figures around him who care more about pleasing Trump than the Constitution, to go after his political opponents. And we recently learned that the FBI was about to release a trove of documents from a very long time ago, I don't know, 15 years ago, relating to Eric Swalwell and some relationship with a potential spy. The investigation ended up not uncovering anything damning, but essentially, Donald Trump pressured the FBI to release it to make Eric Swalwell look bad. The Daily Mail reporting that Pam Bondi has a personal relationship with Eric Swalwell and warned him, and that was the final straw for Trump. I guess technically, these two things, CNN and Daily Mail, could both be true at the same time. CNN did not report what I just said, but they said that Trump had been frustrated with Bondi on multiple fronts, sources said, including her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files, and that she had not investigated or prosecuted enough of his political opponents. She is the second cabinet secretary to be ousted in recent weeks, and last month Trump obviously removed Kristi Noem as secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. One source said that Trump felt the firing went smoothly, making him less wary of removing others. And so that's part of the thing is because Donald Trump is so unhinged in a way we've never seen him and cognitively declining and falling apart, I think he is being really shielded from some of the realities of how difficult what he wants is. If he wants to go after his political opponents, Pam Bondi tried relentlessly. She was loyal to the president through and through. She will be seen in history as truly, I believe, not that much different as people who seceded from the Union. I mean, she truly put Donald Trump above the Constitution. She directed the DOJ to go after his political opponents. She set up these grand juries to try to indict his political opponents, and they didn't go anywhere. But that's not because she didn't try. It's because there was no evidence. There's no evidence against Letitia James. There's no evidence against James Comey. And obviously a lot of actual good lawyers at the DOJ, I'd say all of them, have now left or resigned or refused to take part in those things because they knew what was going on and there was no evidence. So then Pam Bondi was dealing with the worst lawyers ever trying to indict Trump's political opponents. And the thing is, because Trump, again, is cognitively declining and he's such a raging narcissist, and loyalty is so important to him because he only cares about two things. He cares about power and he cares about money. And so now in this second term, he has all these people who are around him who are very loyal. I think at some points it's becoming clear to me they're a little bit scared to give him the reality of what's going on in any given issue. Oh, go prosecute my political opponents. Well, Donald, that'd be hard. He doesn't want to hear that, maybe. And so Pam Bondi goes and basically gives her entire soul to Donald Trump, and he's viewing it as she can't get it done. It's that simple, right? And how smart is... Donald Trump's not that smart, right? He's a moron. My favorite sign from No King's Day here in Chicago is quote, the dumbest motherfucker on planet Earth and the president of the United States shouldn't be the same person. That's pretty well said, right? So how much does Donald Trump really know about how these criminal cases work? Really fascinating. Let's hear from Seth Moulton here, who spoke to MS Now today about this and the realities of it, because who is Donald Trump going to replace Pam Bondi with? I think that is something that's very important. We've heard rumors that it could be Lee Zeldin of the EPA, but regardless of who it is, they will continue to protect Donald Trump by all means necessary.
And so I expect Trump to do everything that he can come up with to try to get her out of testifying, because it could be embarrassing to her. I mean, remember, she's the one who said she had the Epstein files on her desk. I have the client list in front of me, she said, and then all of a sudden she changed her story and that went away. We now know, of course, that's because Donald Trump's name occurs more than just about any other name other than Jeffrey Epstein in the Epstein files. And it's the single thing that's actually hurting his base. So basically what's happening is he's replacing one child pedophile protector with another. That's what's going on. And that's just an embarrassment that that's the top justice official in the United States of America.
That was very well said. I mean, I don't think there's much more to it than that. Whoever he replaces Pam Bondi with, it's just going to be like a continuing rotating shit show, and I assume Donald Trump will get more and more angry at all these people because he'll replace, he's replacing people. He replaced Kristi Noem. He's going to replace Pam Bondi, and it's going to be like, well, whoever he replaces them with can't get it done. Jamie Raskin talking to CNN here.
I wonder, Congressman, what you make of the timing, in part because it was only yesterday that Bondi had summoned the head prosecutor overseeing an investigation into whether former CIA Director John Brennan made false statements to Congress about a years-old intel assessment of Russian meddling in the 2016 election. Our reporting indicates that Bondi was trying to communicate to that prosecutor that she believed that he was slow-walking that investigation and that she wanted to see some development in the case. Do you think that the fact that she's been fired makes it more likely that we'll see similar prosecutions in the near future?
Well, that's what I'm afraid of. She turned the Department of Justice into Donald Trump's vendetta factory. And, whether we're talking about, the FBI director, Comey, or we're talking about the New York prosecutor, Letitia James, or we're talking about members of Congress like Maggie Goodlander, they thought that their job was basically to go out and investigate and prosecute Donald Trump's chosen foes, regardless of whether or not they've done anything. And that's why, there's a record number of judges just castigating and excoriating the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, and these lawyers for their absolute improper behavior in court and outside of court. And I hope that Donald Trump doesn't continue down this road. He'll just ruin some other lawyers' careers. And it doesn't give me a lot of comfort that it's Todd Blanche, who's now the acting Attorney General of the United States. This is the guy who transferred Ghislaine Maxwell from the higher security prison to the low security prison camp in Texas, and has arranged for a very sweet landing for her there.
Right, exactly. So Todd Blanche now, at least for the time being, taking over, and he was the one who talked to Ghislaine Maxwell and got her transferred to this minimum security prison, which is so obviously against the law. But when you enforce the law, I guess you don't have to you don't have to follow the law. It's literally like constitutional crisis, or at least some form of it, every single day. This is Todd Blanche, by the way, next to Pam Bondi in this clip. And as Jamie Raskin alluded to there, and Maxwell Frost also pointed out on Twitter, Pam Bondi still has to testify under oath in front of the Oversight Committee regarding the Epstein files. This does not get her out of that bipartisan lawful subpoena. We will see her soon. So hypothetically, Pam Bondi is still going to testify in front of the Oversight Committee about the Epstein files now that she's been fired by Donald J. Trump. Does that change what she says? I mean, it's so depressing to say that, right? Because she should testify under oath and tell the truth, but we all know, who we're dealing with here. So the question is now, how is she still incredibly loyal to Donald Trump? I don't know. Probably. I mean, to be honest, you would think if you give your entire, soul, well-being, I think Jamie Raskin there said, going to ruin another attorney's life. I think ruin is putting it lightly. Just make a disgrace out of a human being. She gives everything to Trump. She still gets fired. And yet somehow I still believe that every single day she'll be like, I love Donald J. Trump. He's the best human being ever and my best friend. And again, I think this points to what's going on here, right? And this is why I say this. This was reported today. Susie Wiles has expressed concern, Susie Wiles being the White House chief of staff, that aides are giving Trump, quote, a rose-colored view of how the war was being perceived domestically, telling Trump what he wanted to hear and urged them to be, quote, more forthright with the boss about the political and economic risks. And this is something that I had suspected before I saw this reporting, but it starts to make sense in your head. Like Donald Trump, you try so often to figure out if Donald Trump is lying. No, we know Donald Trump's lying. You try to figure out if Donald Trump, what I should say is, knows he's lying or whether he is so psychopath. He's such a psychopath at certain points. He thinks he's telling the truth. Like in relation to the Iran war, when he says all the things he says that aren't indicative of what's actually going on the ground, is he lying and knows he's lying? Is he lying? Is he lying, but he thinks he's telling the truth? And I think this starts to make sense when you add up the idea that, again, he is almost 80 years old and his base is really starting to fall apart and he's not really doing well physically or mentally. It would make sense with this raging narcissist who demands loyalty for people to just start telling him what he wants to hear. Last year, I played Todd Blanche today, actually giving an interview giving a press conference about more Epstein files to come. This was the most ridiculous thing. And again, this is who is currently going to take Pam Bondi's place. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Take a listen.
Just to clarify, is the public going to learn the identities of the men who abused the girls with the information that you're releasing? And if not, why not? And then I have a quick follow-up.
I mean, you just baked in an assumption into your question that I have never said and I don't know to be true. Is the public going to learn about men that abuse these girls? What does that mean? I don't understand what that means.
Well, I mean, they're the men who abused the young women through Epstein's
Look, we said in July, and it remains as true today as it was in July. If we had information, we meaning the Department of Justice, about men who abused women, we would prosecute them, right? We talked about the work that we're doing. That's why I said that. I said this earlier. There's this built-in assumption that somehow there's this hidden tranche of information of men that we know about that we're covering up or that we're choosing not to prosecute. That is not the case. I don't know whether there are men out there that abuse these women. If we learn about information and evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But I don't.
I mean, first of all, the first part, when he says, what does that even mean? What the fuck do you mean, what does that even mean? That's the most will we learn more names of men who abuse young women? What does that even mean? What? It means I think the question was pretty clear, and the last part is just such BS. I don't understand why there's this thought that there's all these hidden. Really? After it was Pam Bondi was they're on my desk. That was the first month of Trump's administration, and then we spent another 8 months going. I don't know how many months, several months going. They exist, they don't exist, the files are a hoax. Let's stop talking about the files. The Democrats actually planted the files. What files? What are even our files? Then the DOJ is forced to remove them, and they still haven't, or forced to release them, and they still haven't released all of them. They're breaking the law right now. They had to release all the files by a certain date. We still have less than 50% of them. Obviously, today they say they're gonna, there are 3 million more pages or files pages are coming soon. Okay, coming soon is still breaking the law. So again, pretty reasonable to assume, based on all of the information I've given you, that they're hiding something. Absurd. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments down below. I will keep you updated. It'd mean a lot if you go right down below if you made it this far. To hit like and subscribe, it goes a really long way. It really helps me out in the algorithm. You guys are the best. Truly, I appreciate you. I hope you have a good rest of your week into the weekend, and I will see you in the next video.